So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of the series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, the NBA Finals went down, and if we're being completely honest, things were a little disappointing because of how one-sided it was, but we also have plenty of off-season rumors swirling, so we still have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Wheeler, and he says that Luka Doncic should make the switch on defense to defending more big men because of his struggles, and his slow-footed nature on that end of the floor. At the end of the day, the Mavericks have nothing to be ashamed of for their season ending at the hands of the Boston Celtics in the finals, but the way the series went down did expose something pretty glaring. The Celtics trounced every team in their path this year, so the fact that that trend continued against the Mavericks is more of a testament to their overall strength that was apparent from the beginning of the season, but specifically against the Mavericks, they found a lot of success against going at Luka Doncic on defense. Time after time, they would go out of their way to use screen action to get Luka switched on to whoever was handling the ball, and once they got the matchup they liked, they would attack, and time after time would successfully blow by Luka, causing the rest of the Mavericks to rotate in. It would leave one of their shooters open as a result of it, and since pretty much every single player in the Celtics rotation is an above average three-point shooter at worst, they have been capitalizing on those chances easily. The idea of Luka making a switch like this would be very reminiscent of what James Harden started to do in his prime, where, as we all know, Harden wasn't always the best on-ball perimeter defender and had a tendency to get lazy out there, but he also began to spend more time defending power forwards and smaller centers, and actually did really well in those lineups. Both Luka and Harden are big-bodied guards with good size and strength, and Harden used that, plus his quick hands, to hold his own in the post and then poke balls away and create turnovers when the attacker was loose with his handle. So to an extent, I definitely agree with the take here because there's no reason Luka shouldn't be able to do the same. Saying it and doing it are two different things though, and the team around him has to be built for those kind of matchups like Harden's Rockets were. Adding an extra guard to the Mavericks lineup would move Luka to the power forward defensively, but it would just make the lineup even smaller, which also doesn't work against a team with a lot of size like the Celtics, and then forcing big men to defend a wing player also isn't an ideal alternative either, so in order to actually be a worthwhile experiment, the Mavericks would need to find a few more versatile wing players to add to their rotation. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Alex, and he says that this NBA Finals series is exposing how overrated Jayson Tatum is, and that even with a ring on his resume after this, he's not a top 10 player. I'll start off by saying that this take is probably taking things too far with the Tatum conversation and the whole calling him not top 10 thing, but in general, the truth about Jayson Tatum definitely leans towards the sides of being a bit overrated. Ever since Tatum's rookie season, he came into a Celtics team that was as talented as any other team in the Eastern Conference. He emerged pretty quickly, and rightfully so, started to get a lot of hype for how mature his game was as a scorer, and very quickly, his name started to be put alongside the best players in the game, maybe prematurely though. I need to preface this whole conversation by saying that obviously, when you debate about where the best players in the NBA are compared to each other, it comes down to splitting hairs and smaller advantages, because they're all so damn good, but there needs to be standards for guys being put in MVP conversations. If you have any kind of presence on social media, you will see firsthand how quickly that fans are to jump on the chance to slander a top-tier guy for a bad game when his team loses, and honestly, while it may be unfair, it does come with the territory. Pretty much every player in the top 5 or even top 10 needs to play well for their teams to play well, because as their team's best player, they have a lot on their shoulders. Jayson Jayson Tatum, genuinely, may be the only guy in that tier who consistently proves that that does not apply to him. The Celtics are undefeated this postseason when Tatum shoots below 40% from the field, and in the regular season, they won a similar percentage of games when Tatum had an off-shooting night compared to when he shot well. In the regular season, the Celtics were actually 1.1 points better per 100 possessions when Tatum was on the bench versus when he was on the court, which is crazy for a top-tier player to have those kind of impact numbers. Tatum is obviously an elite player who produces at a very high level, but his team still easily wins games no matter what he contributes, and no other superstar has that kind of luxury, so I really cannot get behind the idea that he is top 5 or an MVP caliber guy, but the whole not top 10 thing is where the line has to be drawn. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Realist One, and he says that if the Bucks don't prove next season that they can win the finals, then Giannis Antetokounmpo will request a trade. The Bucks made arguably the biggest splash of the entire summer last year when they went out and traded for Damian Lillard, and they did it solely for the purpose of fixing issues that were arising in the playoffs over the previous few years. The Bucks won the title back in 2021, but since then, they've won just one total playoff series, getting eliminated in the first round in each of the last 2 years now, and while this year their demise was pretty much entirely based on bad luck due to injury, it would also be foolish to pretend that the clock isn't ticking on them and their current core. Giannis may already be a champion, but he's also a multiple-time MVP winner and an all-time great talent with a tremendous competitive drive, and is clearly not satisfied yet with what he has accomplished. He wants to win more, and has not been shy about that fact. It's a big reason why the Bucks fired Mike Budenholzer in the offseason and fired coach Adrian Griffin midway through the year last year, because Giannis's patience is running thin and wants his team to be put in the best position possible to get back to the top. Trading for Damian Lillard was supposed to reignite their previously fading offensive output, and in the regular season it definitely did do that, but Lillard is also about to turn 34 years old and is coming off of the worst full season he has had in almost a decade, so Father Time may be catching up to him. Giannis still has 4 more years left on his current contract, so the Bucks don't need to worry about him dipping in free agency, but we've seen Giannis flirt with the idea of leaving in the past, especially in today's NBA too, where star players requesting trades has become the norm, so I wouldn't doubt it whatsoever. The Bucks' core around Giannis may all be made up of players whose best days are behind them too, as Brook Lopez is 36 years old, Chris Middleton is turning 33 soon and hasn't returned to all-star form since his injuries, and Damian Lillard, as I mentioned before, is 34. All of the Bucks' money is tied up into those guys, so if this isn't good enough, it's not crazy to think that it could be time to go a new direction. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.